Hey guys, welcome to the very first episode of Throwback Thursday, the brand new series on my channel. In this series, I go back and revisit older games, and sometimes newer ones I've missed, to see how they actually hold up today, not just from nostalgia, but from a modern gaming point of view. Each episode, I'll be playing through the game while talking over it, breaking down my thoughts as I go. Some games will be more focused on discussion and comparison, others will just be about experiencing the game naturally for the very first time, but the goal is always the same: seeing if these games are still worth playing today. And to start things off, we've got a big one: Skate 3 versus the new Skate. One is a classic that's still alive over a decade later because of how fun and replayable it is. The other is the newest entry, trying to modernize everything with smoother gameplay, better visuals, and a more realistic feel. I'm going to play both and break them down as I go: what they do well, where they fall short, and how do they compare. And at the end, I'll give you my final verdict on which one still holds up better today. Alright, let's get into it. Throwback Thursday officially starts right now. One of the incredible things about Skate 3 is the fact that it came out in 2010. It's a 16-year-old game, and people still play it today. And that alone shows how replayable and fun the game is. Most games fade out over time, but this one stayed alive way longer than expected, and it's up there with like games from the 360 generation or PS3 generation that people immediately list: Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Call of Duty Black Ops, Halo, um, Gears of War, Mass Effect, God of War. And for a lot of people, it is Skate 3 somewhere in that list. Uh, and that being said, this next point that I'm kind of going to be talking about, that you don't even have to write down because it's so easy to just bring up and think of, is the simplicity of the game. It's easy to pick up, and you don't really need to relearn it much when you've been away from it. I haven't. It's probably been 3 or 4 years since I've played Skate 3 in depth, and the controls are simple enough that I can jump right into it, start recording, and uh, it's still fun. Even after a few years away from the game. And I think that's really important for beginners, because no one wants to buy um, or no one wants to play an old game and have it, be super complex and feel like it's, out of reach to learn. Um, one, another thing that Skate 3 does extremely well is it gives the player freedom of gameplay, which is genuinely rare. You can play this game however you want. Um, in my opinion, you could probably even do like a roleplay if you really wanted to. This game lets you play however you want. You can focus on challenges that are built into the game. You can give yourself challenges. You can mess around with friends and do crazy stuff, break your character's bones, um, run around as a big hunk of raw meat, um, do crazy tricks for fun, jump off buildings, like glide. Um, and that freedom is a big part of why I personally enjoyed it when I was younger. Why, if I had a friend who was like, "Hey, let's get on skate," that'd be another reason why I enjoy it. And I think it's a big reason why a lot of people do enjoy Skate 3 and hold Skate 3 so fondly in their hearts. Um, another one, as I'm riding around in the downtown district, is the memorable map. The map has a lot of personality, and skate spots stand out. Like all of the maps on the downtown district, industrial district, university, skate school, skate park, Maloof, Money Cup, Black Box Park, Maloof Money Cup, 2010, New York City. They all stand out. Like I anyone who's played this game can distinctly remember what district a part of the map is in, and it has its own personality, which I think is really impressive. Let me go to the other one. Yeah, and after a while, like, for people who've been playing it probably since release, or I've had it on the 360 or whatever, you remember the layout naturally, and it feels like a proper, like, playground almost. Like, when you go to the playground that you've been playing at forever, like, where the slide is, where the monkey bars are, and that's how skate feels. I get on the game and I know where I am in the map, which for a lot of big maps, or chopped up maps that have different areas, that's kind of hard for someone to just automatically recognize. But the Skate 3 is able to do that. Now that takes me to, and kind of looking around, the grass, the sky is kind of like not great. The skin, tattoos, it's clear that the visuals are outdated. You can definitely tell that this is an older game. It's not ugly. It's not ugly. But compared to modern games, the graphics are clearly from another generation. It's like they're not even from the Xbox One PS4 generation. They're from the 360 PS3 generation. So, like, that being said, yeah, it's clearly visually a dated game. And I think that's the biggest issue with the game, is that it is very clearly, like, it just dated in a lot of its functions and how it works. And that kind of leads me into, well, like, the animations and models. Some of the movements in character animations feel a bit stiff or awkward. Like, I just ran up the wall there. That felt a little weird. um, uh, and yeah, they feel stiff or awkward by today's standards. It doesn't ruin the game, but it is noticeable. It's noticeable when, like, you're skating and you do that, or, like, it's just like, I'm trying to force it. Of course, it's impossible to force. Uh, but yeah, like, when it happens, it kind of just throws the vibe off, and it's noticeable. Um, the physics are kind of unpredictable, with this game. Sometimes the physics make the game hilarious. You get some crazy glitch, or your character does something funny, hits his head, ragdolls. It's hilarious. Point said. Um, Other times it feels kind of random, and you'll get weird, bails off the board or crashes that don't really make sense. And you're kind of like, why did that happen? And it kind of, okay, so there, clip it, but, like, yeah. Um, there's just certain things where it's like, why that happened? And it's more annoying than anything. Um, and yeah, I think, this isn't necessarily a game that needs to have a story, but, you know, the simple progression in the career mode is enjoyable, but it's pretty basic, in all honesty, especially compared to modern games. And I know, like, this is a simplistic game, but we're comparing it to its successor, and we're comparing it to, whether it would hold up in today's standards. Um, and it doesn't really have, like, a deep long term progression, like, kind of feel that new players might expect. Kids who are 13 to 15 now who are used to AAA studio games giving you insane progression, and like every story that they touch is deep, and not deep, but like there's progression, and there's a sense of like completion, and yeah, just the, what Skate 3 does well, it 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 does well, and it's very clear that it does it well and to the highest. See, that's weird animation. But what it does well and what it identifies itself as, it lives in its identity, and it does what it does well extremely well, like probably better than anything else. But where it has its flaws definitely stand out just as much um, as the perks and what it does, you know, um, and what it does properly showcase. Um, and yeah, I think like that's kind of like the argument for Skate 3. It knows its identity, and it's super comfortable within its identity, but anything outside of that, and anything that it doesn't do well, it magnifies it tenfold. And especially now that it's an older game, um, what it's not great at kind of stands out more. All right, now for the polished baby brother of the skate entries, skate or skate 4. um what it does good, it has smoother gameplay than skate 3. Everything feels more fluid and polished. Even like the vibrations in your controller, it's not as violent or rigid when you do a trick, or when you jump off something. And yeah, movement and tricks are just cleaner and more controlled compared to skate 3. There's a more realistic feel in terms of like the physics of the, well, I won't say the physics. Oh, yeah, I won't say the physics, but I'll say like it is cool seeing, your character's hair blow in the wind, or the shirt, or the baggy jeans, or the shoelaces. Like that's cool. And the game does lean closer to real skateboarding. It and I think this is where it probably does lose brownie points in the hearts of hardcore Skate 3 fans. It loses the chaotic feeling, and it feels more grounded and believable. So, where one of Skate 3's biggest selling points was that, you can do whatever inside the sandbox game, you can have a chaotic gaming session. Skate says, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, let's reel it back here. Let's kind of, you can have fun, but let's go for something that feels a little more realistic, something you would see, on like a on like a Meta Glasses Instagram reel or something like that." Um, it has, it has better customization. A lot more in depth. Um, there are more modern tools for customizing your character. Um, and you can give your character style, like genuine style. It feels more up to date, and built for current players who are used to in-depth character customization. um, even like a game like GTA 5, where like you can customize your character head to toe. It's similar to that, where you get a personal, genuine sense of like like individuality, and your character just feels individual. Sorry, my mic cut out. Um, but this game, instead of feeling like a one-time game, it feels like something that um, is ever growing. And I think it's because Skate 3 is a 16-year-old game that has had support cut, and this is a game that's still partially in development. But you can feel the game growing, and there's that sense of, the devs are listening, and the game's mechanics can grow, the map can grow and change. Players can grow and develop as well, and yeah, it feels more like a joint evolving structure amongst, the map, the devs, the game, and the players. Um, but as good as Skate is, it does have struggles. And that being said, I think the reason that it feels like it's ever growing and ever evolving is because it is also, you know, it feels less complete at the same time. It feels like there's something missing. Some players say they feel like it doesn't have that finished game feeling, and it can feel more like a platform that's still evolving. And I think, it's a double-edged sword where it's great that it's this game where it feels like this community project almost, but then at the same time, being so used to Skate 3 and being so used and wanting, Skate 4 to come out for like the last 12 years, it's been asked for. They get it, and then, it's in early development. It just feels like it's not a full product. Like, we're not getting everything that we could be, which isn't bad, but it is where players do revert back to Skate 3 because it feels more complete and more, not genuine, but just more authentic as a video game. Um, oh, the older Skate games, like all of them, did have like that clear start from nothing. You're fresh on the scene, and then you become a legend. Like, and not necessarily in the mission progression, but in the fact of like what you unlock. Like, you in this, it's pretty easy to unlock like everything, but it's a little bit of a grind with Skate 3. um and yeah, it's Skate moves away from that, which not everyone loves. I mean, I do like having more open having more open accessibility to like a larger catalog of character customization early in the game, because I don't know, it's a trade-off. But a lot of people do feel that it misses like the classic Skate kind of like, oh, I'm fresh on the scene, I gotta figure this out, I gotta you know really earn all of these added features. And then I think the biggest con with this being a more grounded okay. So ignore what I'm gonna say, or ignore what just happened while I say this. The biggest con about this game being realistic is that it loses its chaotic moments. Skate 3, and what made Skate 3 incredibly popular, and I think what keeps a good amount of Skate 3 followers interested in the game, is because it's known for its random funny moments and its chaos. Skate, on the other hand, feels more controlled, so you don't get as many of those unpredictable clips. You don't get as many of those like, oh my god, like what just happened. And you kind of like, I wouldn't like I you have to like kind of you have to go out of your way for them. Whereas opportunity kind of arose and like fell in your lap in Skate 3 because it had less realistic gameplay and and physics and stuff. So like you could just get a chaotic or funny moment easier, whereas in this you have to look for it and seek it out a little more. But yeah, those are my points for Skate 3 and Skate. Alright, so after playing it, you can see that at the end of the day, it really comes down to what you prefer: controlled realism or chaotic fun. Neither game is better in every way, they just appeal to different types of players. Skate 3 wins when it comes to pure fun, replayability, and those ridiculous moments that still get clipped and shared years later. Meanwhile, Skate stands out with its smoother gameplay, improved visuals, and more realistic feel, and honestly feels like the direction the series is heading in. If you want a more reliable, smooth skating experience today, Skate is probably the better pick. But if you want pure fun, chaos, and endless replayable moments, Skate 3 still wins in that category. But overall, Skate 3 still holds up insanely well for its age, and that's exactly why people are still playing it today. So it really depends what you're looking for, but both still hold up in their own way. And that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye bye.